I have a favorite trend. Now, this is a favorite trend that comes from one of everybody's favorite islands, the island of weed smoke and Bob Marley and idyllic beaches and insanely good chicken, Jamaica. But the trend going on in Jamaica has nothing to do with any of that. It doesn't even have to do with the fact that Snoop Dogg is like the main correspondent for NBC at the Olympics right now, apparently, and I am seriously enjoying that, but I'm also aware that the majority of you have no idea that that's actually true. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and look it up. If you're over a certain age, the fact that Snoop Dogg is doing that is genuinely mind-blowing and also awesome. I think he's the one person on the planet that literally nobody can hate. But back to the fun trend popping up in Jamaica. The Jamaican national team is developing an obsession for funky white boys, and I'm here for it. Allow me to explain. They started by hiring the former Icelandic national team coach. I'm talking about that Icelandic and you won't even believe where this is heading, by the way, if you don't already know. His face might be on the thumbnail, but just in case it's not, you have no idea where this is going, and it's going to be hilarious. But it starts with that Icelandic coach. The guy that took Iceland 2 Euros in 2016, beat England, and took Iceland to the World Cup in 2018. His name is Heimir Hallgrímsson, right? That right there. That's Heimir Hallgrímsson. He was the coach for Jamaica going into Copa America. And he was trying to set this new glorious standard for Jamaica, because Jamaica is a really weird national team where they become a lot less than the sum of their parts when they all get together and play together. They have genuine talent, whether it be Damari Gray, Bobby D. Cordova-Reed, Michael Antonio, or the perpetually mercurial and impossible to nail down Leon Bailey, who just basically decides sometimes that he doesn't want to play for the national team and he wants to go party instead, right? But I've made a whole other Zealandism about how weird that situation is. But Heimir Hallgrímsson came in here with enthusiasm, talking about how they were going to try and beat teams and how they needed to believe that they were better than they had been in the past. I mean, he was making me believe. After making me believe, he promptly went to Copa America and flopped. They dropped all 3 matches. They got yeeted. Leon Bailey didn't even show up, even though he was included in the roster. At which point, Heimir Hallgrímsson seemed to realize the fact that this situation going on with the Jamaican national team was borderline impossible, probably untenable. He resigned and basically immediately ended up being the head coach of the Republic of Ireland, because Heimir Hallgrímsson is obviously a very good international coach. He just couldn't figure out Jamaica. So Jamaica, after perpetuating one of the funniest hires I've ever seen, there could not be a much bigger cultural difference between Iceland and Jamaica, and yet they brought in the Icelandic coach to do it. They needed one funky white boy. Well, now they're looking for another one. Right, they're looking for another funky white boy. And don't get me wrong, it is not a bad idea for Jamaica to hire somebody from the United Kingdom. There's no language barrier, right? There is a pretty significant cultural connection between Jamaica and in England specifically, right? That is a huge opportunity to tap into a very good network of coaches. I mean, there are, even though obviously the best coach in the world has been English and maybe ever, but there obviously are a ton of very good and accomplished English coaches, much more so than there are good and accomplished Jamaican coaches. So that is definitely a well that they could tap. But if you were looking for somebody from the UK or England to step into the job with Jamaica, somebody that could really embrace that role, somebody that can embody being the head coach of Jamaica, I can't think of somebody that would do that less than the next funky white boy they're locking in on, Steve Bruce. I'm not joking. This is actually a thing. It was reported on by the Daily Mail. I'm not going to show you the articles from the Daily Mail because I want to I want to be able to finish making this video with my eyes still intact. And if I go to the Daily Mail, I'm going to have to watch about 500 ads popping up about local cougars in my area. So we're going to read the reporting of the Daily Mail through the other people that copied their reporting but tweaked it enough so that they could post it on their own website, like Sport Bible. And they start the article with Steve Bruce is in talks over sensational return to management with a team absolutely no one could have ever predicted. That's not true. Football Manager definitely could have predicted this. This is something that feels exactly like a Football Manager managerial move. I mean, we're looking at Steve Bruce here, a guy who was, to his credit, the coach of Newcastle when the Saudi government decided they wanted a new plaything, right? He ended up getting relieved in favor of Eddie Howe. After that, if you didn't know, because honestly, I'd forgotten he went to West Brom, was there for less than a year. He got yeeted out, and he's been out of management ever since, right? But he does have a long, tenured managerial rap sheet with clubs of Premier League caliber, whether it be Newcastle, whether it be Aston Villa, Sunderland. He's around Crystal Palace. He coached Birmingham City for 6 years, team, of course, he played with after he left Manchester United, and that experience is also important. We're looking at somebody in Steve Bruce that played for Sir Alex Ferguson for like a decade. He has a ton of legitimate pedigree. And look, I'm not somebody that sits here and uses words like aura, but Steve Bruce's aura just could not be further away from Jamaica. So I'm just curious what Jamaica's process is. Are they just looking for the weirdest possible hire? I think basically every single English manager, including Roy Hodgson, would make more sense than Steve Bruce, just in terms of a culture fit. I mean, this is like, I don't really know what this is like. Hiring Heimer Helgrimsson to be the head coach of the Jamaican national team, which of course they already did. And I'm also a little worried about Steve, because this national team is a train wreck, and it has been for a while, and it doesn't seem like they can get out of their own way. And, I don't want Steve Bruce to fall on his face with a job like this, because it's already getting attention for being so weird. According to the Daily Mail, Bruce is in talks to become the new Jamaica manager in what would be his first job at the international level. Also important to note, he's never managed outside of England. So there's that. It feels like that sentence feels relevant. But this could drop soon. Maybe before this video even comes out, a decision is expected within the next 10 days. But the more I sit down here and I think about it, this all makes sense. He's never managed outside of England. And if you look at Steve Bruce's playing career, he's never played outside of England. He's 63 years old. Right, he's got a managerial pedigree that is enough to attract Jamaica, which, look, even though Jamaica, in my opinion, is a toxic job, right? They need a manager like Heimer Helgrimsson who's going to come in and try and unite, the troops, and he wasn't able to do that. It's a national team that has a lot of talent that nobody seems to have ever been able to get that actual talent out of them. It's the most talented Jamaican national team that's ever existed, and they're still squeaking their way into Copa America and getting flattened by Venezuela. Okay, like this is a very complex and very difficult job. But maybe Steve, wily Stevie over here, maybe he just doesn't care. Because what's a better retirement gig than moving to Jamaica, all expenses paid? I mean, you've been spending your whole life working and battling in England, right? And it's somebody that grew up in Florida, right next door to the Caribbean, and has to spend a lot of time in England. There is a difference. You can put the sweaters away, put on the flip-flops, try and hit on Leon Bailey enough to get him to come back to the team, but whether it works or not, who cares, man? You got some jerk chicken, you got some rum, and life is good. What I failed to consider when I first saw this is that Steve Bruce is looking for that paid retirement job. Now, I'm not saying he's not competitive, and I'm not saying he's not going to go for it. I'm just saying that at the age of 63, after a long, hard, cold life in England, managing and playing on a cold, rainy night in Stoke, the idea of managing and playing in Kingston does not sound too bad after all. And there is arguably no better job with a better opportunity to, hey, maybe guide a team to the World Cup in a nice warm weather area like that on a beach somewhere on an island than Jamaica. Like, you're really not going to get a much better job or opportunity than that, because if you look at CONCACAF, Canada, Mexico, and the United States are all hosting the World Cup. They all automatically qualify, and that means they're all out of qualifying. There's 3.5 spots left for the other teams in CONCACAF. Right? Your Costa Ricas, your Panamas, your Jamaicas. And then if you become a Jamaican hero, then all of a sudden your retirement job just got so much better. You're hanging out with Usain Bolt on the beach. That's the future I envision for Steve Bruce. That's the future I want for Steve Bruce. I have wanted Jamaica to be great for so long, and I started this video making fun of the fact that Jamaica seems to be just hiring managers that cast the most obvious cultural contrast with their own country and their own culture. But you know what? If it works, Steve's going to live a good life. And Jamaica's going to live a good... I can just be happy for people I want to be happy for. So now I'm rooting for it. Give me Steve Bruce with fake dreads leading this team to glory. because they're talented enough to do it, quite honestly. And who knows, maybe they just need a little fire and brimstone and 442 in their life. Who doesn't? I do, right now, always.